Dobro nam došli u Windsor.
Hola, bienvenido a Windsor.
Witam w Windsor.
Bienvenue à Windsor.
Dobrodošli u Windsor.
歡迎你來溫莎。
Bienvenue Windsor.
Vitajemo vas Windsor.
Przyjaciele go Windsor.
Dobrodošli u Windsoru.
Bienvenue à Windsor.
歡迎你哋嚟到溫莎市。
Dobrodošli u Windsoru.
Buondì e benvenuti a Windsor.
Добро пожаловать в Windsor.
Kusodwa Windsor.
$230,000 people live in Windsor. But when so many of them come from places across the globe, can they really call Windsor home? This city is Canada's fourth most diverse. Visible minorities make up over 17% of our population. But diversity may not always mean community. How can so many people from such different cultural backgrounds call the same city home? It makes you wonder why they settled in Canada, but more specifically, why they chose Windsor.
My parents came to Canada because my brother was here ahead of time. At that time, China is really poor, and so we are hoping they have a better education, have a better life. So we are coming here for a better life. It is not because we're trying to change Canadian culture. We are come here is not because we find that we are better. We come here because we find Canada, it is a place that can able to fulfill a dream.
In 1990, war began between Muslims and Armenian Christians. So I couldn't stand in my country because it was very dangerous. So I leave it. They pushed me out. It wasn't my desire or my wish. I have never thought about that, leave my country. But war pushed me out. And I came here as refugee. But I had relatives, they invited me, and I came here, thank God, they did that.
We wanted to live in Walkerville. That was what, to me, was as close as possible to Europe, to France, because of the character of the houses, because of the closeness of the stores, and you can pretty much do everything by photo.
I came a first time here for a vacation in '93. Right there, I said, I love this place. I like it. The dream started at that point, and then it took like 10 years to convince my wife and myself to do this move. In 2002, we did it. We did it even because I was studying in Rome at the university, and we were living close by the Canadian embassy. So when I opened my window, I was seeing this Canadian flag. I was wondering how hard would it be for us to move to Canada.
Dad used to, and I love when he used to tell these stories, but he came to Canada with $60 in his pocket and nothing more than the Canadian dream, like coming to North America, a new start. He didn't know the language, he knew a little bit of French, he didn't know English, and he spoke Arabic.
We left former Yugoslavia for obvious reasons. The time after the war was really hard on all of us. It was a tough time. We couldn't raise the family as we thought that we should. We had a chance, to come to Canada, and we thought we would probably regret it for the rest of their life if we didn't took the chance and get out of that situation. And that we came to Canada in 1998 with our son Alexander, who was at that time 5 months old baby, and that was really harsh times in the beginning. But again, never regret it. I love it, and that's my country now.
I like to say about me, I am immigrant and poet. Poet because my spirit, but immigrant is not because I'm talking about someone who is coming. I wanna say immigrant in my head. It's like also spirit condition. That it's someone who is on the new land with new situation, without language, with many new problems. Someone told me, don't say immigrant. I said, no, immigrant is important. We are everyone immigrant, yes, but immigrant is about your spirit. And that's why I want to say immigrant and poet.
Windsor may be diverse now, but it hasn't always been that way. The first settlers to the area were French Canadians who arrived in 1749. They were the Jesuit mission to the Huron Indians, and they established themselves at the south shore of the Detroit River at what is now the foot of Huron Church Road. They built farms and mirrored the settlement that already existed on the Detroit side of the river. Evidence of Windsor's original French settlers still exists today in our buildings, street names, and land plots. Despite Windsor's overwhelming French population early on, the French language and culture have seemingly disappeared.
We see like the tourtière and like the meat pie, and a few things, a few French Canadian things from like the 18th and 19th centuries. But there were also another wave of migrants coming from Quebec in the second half of the 19th century. And I think what we find today that like the culture that survived, it's mainly because of these late 19th century migrants. The 18th century people, the vast majority don't speak French anymore. There's still a small minority. Most of them basically just, they're aware of the fact that their family was French. Some of them are proud of it, but that's about it basically.
The French were not the first people in the Windsor area. The First Nations people were here long before any European settlers moved to the south side of the river.
We're kind of the invisible people in Windsor. People don't know we're here. Because there's no reserve in the area, a lot of people don't actually realize that we walk among them. There's we figure 5,000 to 7,000 First Nations people in Windsor and Essex County. A lot of people look at us and think maybe, I don't know, we're Italian or Portuguese or, some other such mixture, but they don't realize that we're First Nations people. We don't want to be considered part of the multicultural mosaic because we were always here. We didn't come to like hold hands and sing Kumbaya and talk about how wonderful and tolerant, the Canadian society is. I mean, there are some very, very huge issues still with First Nations relationships with the present Canadian government and past governments. Our situation is very, very much more different than just grabbing some multicultural dollars, throwing them at us and saying, hey, come on out and give us the French fries of your people, and the sandwiches of your people for the caravan festival, and we'll all enjoy the multicultural aspect. We don't want to be ever lumped in with that.
Windsor may be a diverse city, but it isn't always welcoming. We have seen racism as far back as August 1888, when French Canadian nuns came from Montreal to build Hotel Dieu Hospital. They also set up an orphanage for black children. The school, however, closed soon after, mostly because the nuns had no interest in continuing. Their diaries portrayed elements of prejudice. Discrimination was also evident from Bishop Fallon of the London Diocese, who interfered with the French Canadian religious community at Hotel Dieu. His actions against French Canadians caused a riot in Windsor. Prejudice did not end there. Even in recent years, the Windsor media has reported on many isolated incidences of extreme racism. But not all acts of discrimination make the headlines.
Because of my color, why should someone, look at me differently? I didn't like that growing up. I was just as good as anyone. No matter what color I was, I should be able to achieve just about anything I wanted to if I put my mind to it. They got to do better than what their ancestors did in order to make a change.
Happy? I'm not happy with Windsor. You only have to look around. Where you work, how many black people work there?
None.
None?
Why I worry about, a few people have the language in against me or a black face against me, I not worry about it. So a lot of people thinking, I may be second class. No, Canadian has no second class. We are all Canadian citizenship. We all have the same right and equal in right.
I believe that people cast the stereotypes on us in our city. Like, Windsor, it's a good place, but at the same time, there's a lot of hidden secrets behind it. Like, we like have this cover of like, oh, we're such a great city, we're so friendly and everything, but in reality there are many people who live in Windsor who cast stereotypes over many different religious groups and ethnic groups.
A lot of times I'm looked at differently, or people expect me to do lesser, and I always feel like I need to do even more than what someone that would be considered good would do for me to be on the same platform. I always feel like I need to do the extra to be even considered equal with a lot of people.
Windsor has some of the absolutely most lovable bigots and racists you ever want to meet. You know, these people honestly don't realize, you know, sometimes that they have issues, but they're just so nice. The sort of racism and the bigotry that I've run into in Windsor has always been absolutely, they'll tell you, they have a problem with you.
Windsor is a safe community. We have 130 different ethnic groups and we all get along, which is a huge draw for anybody who's been terrorized or doesn't feel safe. We're a great community that way. People don't know that, but we really are.
I grew up in Newcastle, Ontario, which is about 4.5 hours north. We were the only black family in the little town of Newcastle at the time, and so I did experience some racism as a kid. When we moved to Windsor, I was 9 years old, and all of a sudden I was just like everyone else, and I really have experienced very little, if any, racism.
People calling me name, teasing me, I had to fight probably, I would say within the first 2 years, I probably fought over 10, 20 people. Different ages, different nationality, different color. I had to do it. I had no choice. I had to defend myself. No choice. At one point, I was so young that I hate my own self, because I say people calling me, I wish I was white, that people don't call me names. So that was perception I had way back. But then after a while, I realized, you know what, why do I want to be like that? I want to have my own culture. I want to stand out who I am. I want to speak against these people, against any nation. It doesn't matter who it is and what it is.
Why the migrants and refugees love this country, because they can feel their own home very shortly after the year or two, you know, after gaining their papers and the citizenship, and they can feel it really remarkably happy. Nobody cares where you coming from originally, as long as you are normal living human being.
When the whole world's out to save you and you're like, listen, I don't need saving. I've made these beliefs I've chosen to believe this myself. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't believe it.
In each of these cases of discrimination, people never left the city. History and tradition kept them here. They continued to call Windsor their home. Windsor's many cultural communities are scattered geographically and find themselves represented in smaller, denser collections of people from the same backgrounds. Each ethnicity seems to have its own community center or neighborhood in which its people feel most comfortable. As you make your way across the city, you will come across the Serbian Center, the Jewish Community Center, Place Concord. Erie Street is Windsor's own little Italy. The influx of Middle Eastern cultures has revitalized the neighborhoods east of Olette Avenue with the opening of cafes, computer outlets, and convenience stores. By contrast, Wyandotte West, near the University of Windsor, has attracted a collection of sushi restaurants. The Ottawa Street Village neighborhood has predominantly Russian, Ukrainian, Polish, and other Eastern European residents. Do these separate individual communities help us redefine what home means to all of us? Are these new immigrants ignored by others, or do they themselves ignore other communities altogether?
There's a difference. Culturally, there's a difference. Socially, people coming from over there are far more social because they grow in an environment that is very social, as opposed to us here. Everybody there knows their neighbor. Here, people don't all know their neighbors. In fact, some people avoid their neighbors. It's an adjustment for them when they come here, for sure. Whereas first generation's used to it. It's common for us. That's how we were raised, and we understand that.
Meantime, Windsor is just used to that multiculturalism, I think, because it started so long ago and historically been really good at it. So there's a push for people to integrate in different ways in the best possible way.
If you get on the bus and you take a public transit, you'll often not hear English, you know, and I think it's really nice. I don't have to go to Europe. I don't have to go to the Middle East. You know, I can be right here at home and be surrounded by different cultures. So.
Like most people who've immigrated here, the Croatians have done a great job, you know, ameliorating themselves to the Canadian way of life, learning to speak English, learning to work and be Canadian. But at the same time, they still embrace their own culture.
I think there is in Windsor there's a little Italian city because this community is very close by, and I can tell here from Caboto Club there's people from all over, north, south, center, and they get along very well.
While some among the immigrant community have found assimilation an easy transition, language remains a barrier. Some have found it difficult embracing bilingualism, where others have retreated into their own communities, never learning the basics of English.
Basically, when I came, I have no English at all, absolutely zero English. I was put into a public school, just dumped in the classroom. And I sat there like a dummy for 3 to 6 months. Don't know a word of English. I wish I should have learned English before I came. Yeah, definitely it was an asset at that time. I was lucky that I was young enough to able to pick up English very fast. My parents was not. So they suffered because language. They were professional people, and they came to Windsor to work in a restaurant. So that's sad.
I felt that it was kind of special for people to tell them that I'm French. They like to try their French, and I'm always encouraging. As soon as they hear my accent, they want to speak French. I'm really always happy to, and it happens very, very often.
After years, I wanna say my English is right now is base, you know, base. But I can go to the office, to City Hall somewhere, and I can discuss. I don't need assist translator with me. I'm thinking in Polish, you know. English is barrier.
Me and my wife are communicating strictly on Serbian, obviously. More often we pointing out to our children, you know, you have to speak it, and they trying, you know, but they have sometimes funny situations. They're mixing up the grammar. It sounds funny, you know. When me and my wife talking English language, he is too often making the fun of us because we sometimes say something in an appropriate way. Sometimes we mix up the grammar as well, and vice versa. We're making jokes of each other.
I was the second Polish-speaking dentist in Windsor. It is much easier to communicate about their dentistry in their native language, which is Polish.
Find a job because I came here without language, so very hard to find a job without the language. But many good people that they helping me to get the job and help me with the language too.
No, I'm conversational Oneida, not even that, no. Just over 600 speakers left in the entire world, only 600. Oneida is one of the languages that will be a dead language very soon. It does seem like quite a devastation because language is culture. Of all of the things that I think have happened to First Nations peoples since European contact, I think the loss of language is by far the most tragic.
For more than 40 years, Carousel of Nations has been held in Windsor, sponsored by the Multicultural Council of Windsor in Essex County. This festivity, organized each June, gathers together a vast array of cultures for city people to experience the cuisine, world music, artwork, and ethnic dances of the various cultural identities that have made Windsor their home. Started in 1974, this festival is considered the second favorite one of its kind in Ontario and fifth in Canada.
And all the communities come together and put on festivals and make food and drink available at their community centers, at their churches, at their halls, and as well as on the riverfront. And that really brings our community together, lets everybody celebrate together.
City officials have promoted diversity. They recognize Windsor as a welcoming, modern city, knowing the realities and advantages that other cultures bring to our community.
I believe in Canadian values, and I believe in the Mosaic concept that we welcome people here. We don't force them to become someone they're not. They bring their culture, they bring their identity, they bring their heritage, they bring their language, they bring all of those things, their religion to Canada, and they set up in a community in Canada, and we all benefit from their experiences, from their history, from those cultures and those languages. So they don't have to melt into one big group. We can all benefit by sharing all of those experiences together.
Somehow, Windsor works. People manage to coexist in relative harmony. Some bring their language and traditions to this city and this country, and they settle down and work and raise their children here. Some arrive here to find a job, but eventually pack up and leave, eager to be among their own traditions. Others come here with their own unique cultural differences, but leave them all behind to embrace this city and call it home. Somehow, Windsor works. It doesn't matter where they come from. Windsor is their home.